All right, y'all. Part four it is. So, we have followed this reunion journey of Joseph and his brothers all the way up to chapter 45. Still, first book of the Bible, Genesis, chapter 45. It is verses 1 through 28. We are going to cover the entire chapter here, and we are going to talk it out because it's about to get real. So there have been several tests that Joseph put out there to kind of see where his brothers are, to hear and learn and make sure they are in fact his brothers, and if they've kind of learned their lesson, like are they good, decent people, and then learn about their lives in the time that they've been separated from each other. His brother sold him into slavery at 17 years old. He had a journey for his life. He is right around 40 years old at this point, and they are here to get food from him because there is a famine in the land. And it starts off, well, where we left off is Judah was pleading his case for Benjamin's life. He has said, take me instead of my brother. My father will not survive having lost another son from this mother. He only had two. He already lost the one, and he can't take it. Their lives are intertwined, and my dad is literally going to die if we don't bring this brother back. So, Judah is pleading his case, and verse 45 starts off with Joseph could not refrain himself anymore. He ain't having no more. He could not play the game anymore. He could not pretend to be Egyptian anymore. He could not continue to hold back his identity from his brothers. He cleared the house. He said, all right, everybody that ain't one of them, you're going to have to get out of this space. You can't be around. So he clears the house of all his servants. He clears the house of all the people. And by the house, I mean like they're outside of it. They can still kind of hear what's going on, but they are not in his presence anymore. And what he does then is, in verse 2, he weeps out loud. This weeping is literally that soul cleansing crying. He is getting it out. He has listened to them pleading the case for Benjamin's life, and the way they reference him is that they believe he's no longer there. And he see the love that his father has for the son. He knows the love that his father had for him. He sees how they've now, from going from a place where they was like, nah, this ain't my brother, I don't care about him, we can kill him, to we absolutely are willing to sacrifice our lives for this brother. And he has cried so loudly that every person, every Egyptian that was in his house that he kind of put out, they heard it all throughout the house. He lives, because of his position, lives kind of near Pharaoh. And everybody hears this weeping. And like there's like a whisper that's starting to go around about what's going on. And what it says in verse 3 is, I am Joseph. He tells his brother, it's me. Is my father still alive? I know you said he's alive. I know you said he's good. I know all these things, but I just need to verify that my dad is still here. I still have an opportunity to see him once again. And his brothers are like, I don't know what you're talking about, friend. What you mean you're Joseph? Joseph who? Because as far as they know, it's been almost, it's been 20 plus years since he's been away. He's been presenting himself as an Egyptian the entire time. He's not spoke the language to them. He's not given them any clue or indication that he is in fact their brother. So, hey, they sitting here looking at him a little sideways. And Joseph says, look, nah, like get close. He said, look at me. I'm your brother who you sold into Egypt. He's telling them things that only they would know. Because this man sitting in this position of power, sitting in Pharaoh's house as a ruler, a decision maker, is honestly not looking like the slave the brother they sent into slavery. He's not looking like a slave. And he says, don't be grieved. Don't be angry. Do not beat yourself up. Do not feel like I'm going to get back at you. Don't feel like now that I'm getting ready to kill all of you guys and revealing this. Do not feel that way. I just needed to test your motives. I just needed to see you. And he says in verse 5, God did send me before you to preserve life. God sent me here. God got me in this position. It's an amazing thing when you can look at a situation that you're in that was absolutely torturous. He was sold into slavery. His brother said, we remember hearing him beg for his life and being cold towards him and not responding. Him being imprisoned all that time, him being a slave in Egypt to this position of power that he's in now, he's still a slave. He's just an elevated one. But he's saying to them, don't even worry about it, man. God put me here. God did this. All that pain, that anger, that anguish, all of that was so that God could put me here so that I could preserve life. So that I could be in a position to interpret the dream for Pharaoh, to be in position to be able to implement this plan that he gave me, so that in these years of famine, the people will have food. In verse 6, he said, it's only been 2 years of famine. There's 5 more coming. It's not going to be any harvest. It's not going to be any corn. It's not going to be any of that. I know this for a fact. God made sure that it was certain. I am seeing it playing out. And we have a plan. God gave me a plan. God put me here for this. In verse 7, he says that again, God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, to save your lives by a great deliverance. God put me in this position. I get that it was hard. I get that it was torturous. I get that it was bad. But God put me here in this position for this purpose. In verse 8, it says, so now it was not you that sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh. A father, you think about what a father does. He is an advisor. He's a person who guides and leads and tells you what and how to do things so that you can grow and be great. He said, I am in charge of Pharaoh's house. I am in charge of the food in Egypt. I control the food. Like in that situation, because of everything that you did, it wasn't you, it was God's plan. It was God working this thing out for me. And because of that, I'm here. God used you to make this thing happen. This wasn't you. This was God. Do not get angry. Do not beat yourself up. I don't have any anger for you. I'm sorry, excuse me. I don't have any, I'm not ready to get back at you. Don't grieve, don't worry, don't stress yourself. Do not feel like I'm about to rain down vengeance on you. I'm showing you who I am because you're my brother and I miss you. And he says to them, go now and get my daddy. Bring my father here. That way y'all don't have to worry about traveling all this way, trying to get a little corn every once in a while. Come live in this land where food is bountiful and plentiful because we were prepared for this. We knew it was coming even when y'all didn't. God put me in position to save you. I'm not even mad. God put me in position to save you. And he said, look, in verse 10, bring my dad and he'll live in Goshen. Bring the whole family, everybody, so that all your children, your grandchildren, bring everybody, bring the whole family here. Y'all not wanderers no more. You're not going to travel around Canaan hoping that you're going to find a space that dealing with the stuff that we had to deal with growing up. Come here and live in this land of Goshen where it is plentiful, where you'll have your own space and you don't have to worry about anything going on. And in verse 11, he said, I will nourish you. You don't even got to buy the food. You don't got to go through the same things that people are going through. I'm going to take care of you. There are still 5 years of famine left, and I wanted you to make sure that y'all are going to be okay. If you don't come, you're not going to make it. I know this. And then he looks up and he said, man, look at me. Look at me. Look at me good. And you'll see that me and Benjamin got the same eyes. I look like my mama, friends. I know I've been in Egypt. I got this haircut. I got these clothes on. You know, I'm styled the way that they would look, but I want you to look deep and see my mother in me. And he said, I want you to tell my father about where I am. You sold me into slavery. You don't got to tell him that part. You don't got to tell him that part. I want you to tell him that the position I have in Egypt. I want you to tell him how great I am here. Bring him here. And then in verse 14, he falls on his brother Benjamin. He gets a chance to hold his brother and hug him, to really show that he loves him. And he just lets it all out. At this point, he is letting it all out. He crying on everybody. He kissing all his brothers. He looking at them in the face. They in here eye to eye. I want you to look at me and see me and know that it's me. And he is given an opportunity to love on his brothers in a way they've never been able to do. Because jealousy and anger has always kind of been in the middle of what they got going on. They were never able to do this. And he is happy. And so in verse 16, it says the fame thereof, meaning this whisper that's going around that his brothers are here. He's been reunited to his family. He was a slave and he's now in a position where he has all of his brothers with him. This is kind of whispered around and gotten to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh says, tell your brothers to take my horses and chariots and go and get your family from Canaan. Canaan ain't going to be able to grow no food. Canaan ain't going to be able to do what needs to be done. It's over for them. Canaan ain't going to be able to, it's not going to happen for them. But what I want is for you to go get your brothers and your father. Round up all the children, cousins, aunties, uncles, everybody. Bring everybody and tell them to come move here. But use my chariots because I don't want your babies walking. They don't got to travel all this distance on their own. I want you to go ahead and bring your babies here. Bring your wives here. Let them be comfortable in their travel. Take my chariots and my horses. And then come and live off the land, the fat of the land in Egypt, the excess that we have. I want you to come and make sure that you have what you need here. And so in verse 21, they did that. They was like, yep, give me them chariots. Let me ride good. And so they are so overwhelmed and excited that they have been reunited to their brother and that their brother has been making provision for them. He took no money from them. He fed them that amazing lunch. They got to hang out and spend time with him. Yeah, they had a couple of days in jail, but it pales in comparison to what was happening. And so they get the chariots, they get the horses, and they ride back out to Canaan. And in verse 22, he gives them gifts to go back with. And he gives them all changes the clothes. He gives them some rich stuff. He even took them on a little shopping spree, gave them a little designer. That's what's happening. He gives them stuff. But when he gets to Benjamin, he gives Benjamin 5 times as much. He gives them 5 outfits instead of just, so everybody else got 1 bag of clothes. He got 5 bags. He did extra for his brother because this is my brother, same mother, same father. This is the brother that I didn't get a chance to see. My older brothers, and I know them, but this brother had nothing to do with anything. This brother, he gonna get a little extra because he was innocent in it. The other part of it is, I can see my mother in you. I miss my mother the same way you miss your mother. I miss my father, and you share these parents with me, and I want you to have extra because I'm your brother. And so he sends his father 10 donkeys carrying goods. They got corn and bread and meat, all these things as gifts for his father. He's sending him food in a famine as a gift, which is what you want. Here's the things that you don't have. You don't have a grain for bread. You don't have corn. You don't have any of these particular types of meats. You shepherds, I'm sending you beef. Let me send you a couple of cuts of veal, a little steak. And you over here eating lamb chops and stews. That's cool, but let me send you something different. So he's sending him all these things, and he sends brothers away with these gifts for his father. He says, look, don't get lost. Going out here, get my dad, round up your families and come on back. Don't take a long time. Don't think about it. Don't wait till the food runs out for what you have and then come back. Just come back. Just come on. And so in verse 25, they leave out of Egypt and they get to Canaan. And they get to Jacob. And then they get to Jacob. Jacob is mourning. He has gone from being Israel again to Jacob. And it's because he has determined that his legacy, that his promise that God gave him, all of these things are lost. He is in grief. He is in mourning. He is sad. Benjamin is away from him. And he is spending every waking minute worried and stressed out about whether this boy is going to return or has he lost everything. Has he lost his wife and both sons? And so in verse 26, they go to him and they say, hey, Joseph is alive. He's the governor. This man he's a politician. This man is rich and wealthy and affluential in Egypt. And Jacob's heart fainted. Jacob was like, whatever, man. That's not real. These are lies. Don't stress me out like this. And they was like, nah, go look outside. Go look outside. I want you to look outside and see the chariots from Pharaoh. See the animals that have come. See these loaded down gifts that he sent us back with. Look at these designer clothes he gave us. Clearly, we're telling you the truth, Daddy. Like, Joseph is alive and he wants us to come and live with you. And it says in verse 27 that he saw everything and heard what he was the message that Joseph had sent. And it says that his spirit was revived. Hearing from this son that he thought he lost, seeing Benjamin return, knowing that where he thought he had nothing left, he in fact had double portion. He has both of the sons that are there. And that this son is wealthy and affluential and has the ability and means to provide for him and wants to. He could have had a chip on his shoulder and been like, nah, y'all did me dirty. My daddy ain't come look for me. Y'all just was telling people stories about me. I don't want nothing to do with y'all. But Joseph was like, nope, I love you. I love you. I don't care what you did. God did it. God used that to work for my good. What the devil meant for bad, God used it for good. So I don't care how I got here. What I did was I got here and I saved the lives of all the people of Egypt and my family. And so his father sees this and is revived. This man has spent years in mourning. He has spent years in grief. He has spent years with sadness, literally sitting on his chest. He has taken depression to a new level. And at this point, once he recognizes that his son is alive and in an ability, in a position of affluence, in a position where he can make a difference in the world, that he is not just some random slave sweeping up floors. He's not a prisoner somewhere, but he is actually elevated and being used by God. He is revived. His spirit is revived. This man shrugs off grief and depression and was like, take me to my baby. Take me to my boy. And so he says, and Israel. He was Jacob when he was faint. Jacob was when he was faint, when he was waiting and carrying that depression and that grief. And then it says the spirit of Jacob was revived and Israel spoke. Sometimes we will put off what God called us to be because we've allowed life to get to us. And it'll take us out of that. If God called you wealthy, don't let the bills worry you. Don't let the bills take you out of who God called you to be. If God calls you doctor, it doesn't matter what the grade is on that one test. Don't let that one test decide that you're not going to be the doctor that God called you. Don't sit back and, Mr. or Mrs. walk in that doctor, even when it looks like it's not going to happen. Do not take off the calling that God gave you. If God said pastor, preacher, evangelist, teacher, if God just said child of mine, do not take that off because it looks a little difficult. You feel like it's not what God said. Wear it anyhow. Do not put off your new name. Do not put off your new. Don't take it off like it's a pair of clothes that you're not worthy to put on. It's special occasion clothes and you ain't got nowhere. You better put that ball gown on and go to the grocery store. Walk in it. And so in verse 28, which closes out this chapter, Joseph said, my son is yet alive. Israel said, my son Joseph is yet alive, and I will go see him before I die. God has restored something to me that I thought was gone forever. Quick recap. So the recap for this is Joseph, after this whole trickery that he pulls with this silver cup, has all of his brothers in front of him again. Judah pleads for his case, and Joseph says, I can't take no more. I'm your brother. I am Joseph. Look at me close. Look at my eyes. See that I got my mama's eyes. Me and Benjamin look alike. I know that I look Egyptian, but I want you to pay attention close to who I really am. And he tells everybody, like, y'all gonna have to come here. I got a space over here in Goshen where y'all can live. The whole family can come. Don't leave anybody behind. And I want you to come here and be taken care of. Now, him weeping and kissing and greeting his brothers, the word of that has spread in like wildfire. And the word gets back to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh was like, hey, get my chariots and my horses. Load up 10 donkeys full of gifts. Go. Tell them don't even bring no stuff with them. Y'all can have the best that's here in Egypt. And gives them clothes to take with them. Like quick shopping trip. And gives them everything they need to go back and come back. And it is just an overwhelming experience for these brothers to be reunited without the anger. We see these reunions repeatedly. Jacob had a reunion with his brother Esau. We see these reunions happen, and it is essential sometimes to put off the anger and the upset, and understanding that God had this for a purpose. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it was miserable. Yes, it was hard. Yes, it was all of these bad things. But what the devil meant for bad, God meant for good. And God was able to use Joseph in an amazing way to literally preserve life, to create prosperity for Egypt and for his family, the prosperity for his family. We don't see it here yet, but we see it in the future when the Israelites leave Egypt, they leave with wealth. I don't understand how you escape slavery with wealth, but God has a way of doing that thing. And so he is telling his brothers, like, load everything up, bring my daddy here. He alive, I want to see him. And when they get home, instead of him walking in the name Israel that he got when he wrestled the angel, the name Israel that God changed and gave him a new promise, he's sitting there being depressed and beaten down by life and acting like Jacob, the old person. And the moment that he hears and sees that his son Joseph is really alive, he throws that old thing off and goes back to being Israel quick. His spirit is revived and he is ready to see his son. He is so grateful that God has shown him again that he can trust and believe in the promises of God. Yes, I lost my wife, but God gave me back my son. And so what I want us to remember is, do not give up. Do not decide that it's been too much bad and that no good can happen. Don't decide that all you have left is this little thing that's in your hand. Do not decide that all you have left is, and I have to treasure it and never let anything happen to it. Trust God when he says that he's going to give you and make you and do a thing with you. Do not decide that you are too small, too little, too anything to really be used by God. And stop counting yourself out on these bad things. Too much bad has happened. God can take all that bad. This man been put in a pit, sold into slavery, almost killed by his brothers. He got in here. He got lied on, spent time in prison, forgotten about after he helped people just to get into a position of power unexpectedly. Just wait for God to do the thing. We're going to walk through a whole lot of fires in life. It is better to walk through them with God. All right, y'all. I want you to be blessed. Y'all have a fantastic day.